Another Dead Teenager, a Paul Turner Mystery, Book 3. Author, Mark Richard Zubro. Stonewall Inn Mysteries. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 6. The next morning, Paul woke up to a silent house. Usually the morning bustle of his two sons easily wakened him, even if the alarm didn't. He realized Ben wasn't in bed next to him. The digital clock on the nightstand read 9 a.m. He threw on jeans, sweatshirt, and gym socks and padded downstairs. Ben sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and reading the Chicago Tribune. They exchanged good mornings. "Boys got off to school okay?" Paul asked. "We were all very quiet. I figured you needed the sleep. I helped with breakfast. Jeff insisted that I tell you he loves you." Paul squeezed Ben's shoulder as he passed by him to grab a mug from the cabinet and pour himself a cup of coffee. "I'm glad you were here," Paul said. He still felt wiped out, but the few extra hours of sleep had helped. "Don't you have to be at the shop?" "I'm the boss. I can do what I want. Besides, Iris there. She's much tougher on the rest of them than I am. I've got to shower and get to the funeral by 11. I'll make you breakfast. You don't have to. I want to." After letting water cascade over his body for 15 minutes, and then a meal of fresh fruit, bacon, eggs, and potatoes without an excessive amount of fresh vegetables, Paul felt more awake than he had in days. The phone rang as he was drinking an extra cup of coffee. It was Ian. "Why didn't you tell me these were homosexual murders?" Ian demanded by way of hello. "What homosexual murders? I thought we didn't." "I know we don't say homosexual murders, but 2 of the Chicago morning television shows are reporting that Goldstein and Douglas died because of some gay connection. Only they use that bullshit homosexual murder tag as if some goddamn heterosexual couldn't leave a string of dead males. Jesus fucking Christ. I am pissed." Turner sighed. He hated the term homosexual murder. Did it mean that a homosexual was committing murders, or that homosexuals were being murdered? He hated the clinical sound and the inherent homophobia of too many who used the term. Turner said, "As far as I know, the murders aren't gay-related." "Well, you better talk to the police department, public relations divisions. They were quoted." "Shit." "An excellent reaction and an accurate description." "What did the reports say?" "Quoted some guy who claims he saw the boys at a gay bar. You know how loony some people around this town get if they think there's a gay connection. After Gacy and Eiler, you'd think they'd learn better. This is the first I've heard about their sexuality having anything to do with the murder. We have no evidence from the scenes of sexual activity. Both boys have solid heterosexual credentials. It's usually the kids from poor families, history of drugs, whatever. Who the Gacys and Eilers go after? You know the drill. Boys out there hustling for money, drugs, or kicks. None of that fits the profile of these kids or any of the facts that we've been able to find." "Well, you've got it now." "You remember the name of the guy who gave the interview?" "Yeah, claimed he was Purple Steve, a bartender at the Leather Strap. Somebody at Area 10 will have the details by the time you get there." "What are you doing home?" "I called headquarters first. Trying to get some sleep. I'm going to the funeral in a few minutes. Maybe I'll stop by the station later. I'm trying to get information on Purple Steve. I'd like to blow his bubble or get an exclusive with him. He sounded like a jerk." "We need all the useless leads we can get." "You sound as if you could use a lot more sleep," Ian said. "Let's try to get together for dinner tonight." "Dinner sounds real iffy. Call me later." Paul told Ben about the latest development. "Only makes it tougher," Ben said. "You're going to make the game tomorrow night?" They'd planned on going to the Bulls game for months. The tickets had been a gift from Mrs. Tolucci for Paul and Ben's first anniversary of dating. "I doubt if I'll be able to make it. I know we've been counting on it, but I'll make it up to you, whether we go to the game or not. Why don't you stay tonight? If there's any chance I can get away, I will." Turner called to Blessing. "What the hell's going on?" "Place is nuts. Carruthers suggested we arrest Purple Steve. Rodriguez dragged Carruthers out of the station. He'll have to talk to Purple Steve." "Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Did they do the lineup on Waverly yet? Yeah, guess what? He picked out the wrong guy. Got it in one. Rats. Or as Fenwick would say, triple shit. Blessing chuckled. Turner told Blessing they'd be in after the funeral and hung up. Paul and Ben walked out to the car together. They saw Mrs. Tolucci working in her garden. She was on her hands and knees, replanting and rearranging her annual beds. She waved to them with a glove-covered hand. They strolled over. As she stood up, Paul reached out a hand to her. She gently waved him away. She smiled at them both and pointed her trowel first at one, then the other. That's the way you two should be, together. Rose had been pushing their relationship shamelessly for years. Both men blushed slightly. You need any help, Rose? Paul asked. I could send Brian over after school. Pah! I already took care of it. He'll be here carrying boxes of dirt, fertilizer, and bulbs for an hour or two. I'll dig and shove and push dirt. But I gave up that carrying nonsense years ago. Paul and Ben hugged in Mrs. Tolucci's front yard. Paul felt himself smiling as he climbed into his car and drove away. Turner parked next to a police barricade, a half a block south of Holy Name Cathedral on State Street. A pleasantly cool breeze drifted in from the southwest. Turner found Fenwick slouched against a blue and white cross from the cathedral steps. I heard about our latest lead? Turner asked. I need that kind of crap, Fenwick said. Somebody getting pictures of the crown? Yeah. Fenwick pointed to two plainclothes detectives mingling with the camera crews from the television stations. Each cop sported a handheld video recorder. Probably won't do much good. The church is jammed. Probably be an overflow out here. Even if our killer shows up, he'll be totally lost in this mob. It was possible for the killer to be somewhere in the throng. The detectives also wanted to observe the families and close friends of the victims. As unlikely as it seemed, that was where a murderer was most likely to come from. The detectives found their way into the cathedral through a side door reserved for dignitaries. They wound up standing in back. The nave was filled with students from the Kennecomet High School, the families of the victims, and most of the political notables in the city. Mr. Goldstein had been a major part of the city for a long time. Turner thought he got a glimpse of Mayor Daley, Cardinal Bernardin, Governor Edgar, and Lou Holtz sitting in one of the front pews. Numerous people gave eulogies. Bob Talbot, the Hulk, who was Jake and Frank's best friend on the football team, seemed to dwarf the rostrum. When he spoke, halfway through, he broke down sobbing as he had when they interviewed him. The kid had to be led away. Their football coach began. This is the saddest day of my life. When he got to the part about how perfect the boys were, Turner heard Fenwick groan softly. As they began to roll the coffins down the center aisle, Fenwick leaned over to Turner. Nobody confessed from the pulpit. Not today, Turner responded. A uniformed cop slipped up next to them and whispered in Fenwick's ear. His partner beckoned for Turner to follow. Once they were outside, Turner asked, What's up? Purple Steve is in the station, ready for us. After their first glance at him, they didn't have to wonder why he was called Purple Steve. He wore shirts, pants, shoes, and socks in various shades of purple. Guy looks like a giant grape, Turner muttered. Fenwick said, I'll stomp his ass to shit if the double fuck gives us any shit. He's going to be one sorry fucker if he's lying to us. They sat at their desk, chairs turned to face Purple Steve, who after some reluctance gave his last name as Smith. Turner could see Roosevelt and Wilson sitting at their desk 10 feet behind Steve Smith. Both wore solemn expressions that came closer to making Turner bust into hysterical laughter than if they'd been making faces and acting silly. You work here? Up the Leather Strap. You probably never heard of it. It's a fabulous gay bar on the north side, in the gay part of town, where you used to harass us. Steve Smith must have been in his early 20s. Turner assumed no bar would be stupid enough to employ someone underage to serve drinks, but the guy was slender and baby-faced and looked very young. Turner knew the bar's reputation in the community, but He'd never been inside. Word was that no matter what its current incarnation as disco bar, sports palace, or leather dungeon, you could always get drugs or a prostitute. I used to dance at the bar, but I gave that up and decided serving drinks had more dignity. Tell us about seeing Goldstein and Douglas. Well, I heard they were such cute boys, but I missed the first news reports and I didn't see any pictures. And then they had that special about Coach Goldstein on the news last night. It was my day off, so I watched. I saw the home movies of his kids playing some sports. I don't follow sports much. Silly nonsense, getting all sweaty for nothing. When I saw the son and his friend in one part of the clip, I was sure I'd seen them on the dance floor of the bar. When? That night. What time that night? Before the murder. What time that night? This time, Fenwick growled the question. Smith hesitated. After 11. Turner suspected the guy was lying. His answer seemed more like a guess than a statement, as if he'd picked a time out of the air and been lucky enough to choose a moment the boys might possibly have been there. They were only 17. How'd they get in the bar? Fenwick asked. Talk to the doorman. Once they get past them, I figure it's okay to serve them. They're supposed to be the ones who check IDs. What they do there? Dance. It's a dance bar. When did they leave? Fenwick asked. I only saw them the once for a brief minute. Purple Steve left to shine in front of the reporters. They'd have to question every employee of the place, a whole new set of possible witnesses. They trudged up to the 4th floor. They assigned personnel to the task and would plod up to the bar to do some of the questioning themselves. Later on, Turner asked Blessing for the latest reports and information. They read and filled out more papers and wrote the daily update on their activities for the commander. They spent 3 hours late that afternoon talking to people at the Leather Strap. Not a one had the slightest knowledge of or was willing to admit to seeing Goldstein or Douglas at the bar. They assigned 2 uniforms to wait out the night, asking all the patrons who came in if they had seen the boys. Turner suspected it would be a slow night at the bar. The blatant presence of cops asking questions wasn't likely to draw a crowd to a gay establishment. As soon as they walked back into Area 10 headquarters, the uniform at the desk said, Commander wants to see you. Half the brass in the city is here. You guys are in trouble. They found the commander and the others in the open space in front of the floor-to-ceiling corkboard. On the 4th floor, Turner recognized most of the assembled crowd. The assistant deputy superintendent of the entire department, the press relations maven, the director of research and development, the commander of the communications division, and the deputy superintendent of technical services. What most of them were doing here, he soon found out. The brass sat and questioned the commander and the 2 detectives relentlessly. For over an hour, Turner and Fenwick might have excellent reputations in the department, but often you're only as good as your last case. The reward for good work is frequently the expectation of even more good work. The presumption of perfection on the part of superiors can have a demoralizing effect on the hardest working of detectives. Have you followed up every lead? Asked the deputy superintendent of technical services. It was the 3rd time in the last 10 minutes he'd asked the question. Which lead is it that you think we haven't followed up on sufficiently? Turner asked. His voice was icily calm, but on the correct side of polite. To one of the brass. Well, the tubby little man blustered. He glanced at the others around the room. He grabbed at the stack of reports in front of him. Well, he rapidly rifled through them. Finally, he stuck on one. What about this? Fenwick grabbed it. There's a report from the western suburbs that says a kid at a fast food restaurant claims he saw them yesterday morning having breakfast. That's Sunday. He claims he saw the kids after they were dead. Why in holy fuck hell should we follow up that kind of nonsense? You have to follow up everything. Are you out of your fucking mind? I don't have to stand for this. The tubby little man rose to his feet. This department's been under a lot of pressure to solve this crime. It's your fault it hasn't been solved. Fenwick banged his fist down on the desk. Our fault! We aren't the fucking criminals here. How the glory holy fuck are we supposed to investigate this bullshit? We've checked through the remotest possible lead 17 times. Every person in the task force has been working nearly 20 hours a day. I don't give a royal holy fuck how much pressure you've been under. I don't care if the Pope and the King of the Universe called. We ain't got shit. And each new lead piles on another avalanche of crap to the blizzard of paperwork we're already drowning under. He banged his fists on the table again. Our fault. If anybody has something constructive to say, I'm willing to listen. Until then... Fenwick drew a deep breath. The room had fallen deathly silent in the past. Fenwick had always stepped just before this kind of explosion, and now he'd done it with half the brass in the city looking on. The deputy superintendent of technical services stepped back several paces from the conference table and openly gaped at Fenwick. Commander Poindexter said to Turner, "Get him out of here." Turner stood up. "Why don't we step into the office and back?" he asked softly. Fenwick glared at the assemblage. His florid face had dangerous purplish tinges at numerous points. "Come on, Buck," Turner said softly. The other members of the group remained silent as Turner led Fenwick away. They crossed to the fourth-floor conference room, surrounded by the quiet of the members of the task force, all of whom had witnessed an outburst most of them wished they had the nerve to make. Fenwick entered, sat down on one of the metal folding chairs, propped his elbows on the desk, and rubbed his fingers against his eyes. Don't fuck, he said quietly. Turner knew that the highest rating anyone could get in Fenwick's system was triple fuck. Usually, he reserved this sacred category for inept Bears quarterbacks when they threw game-losing interceptions or Cubs pitchers who walked in winning runs. The system proceeded through 3 levels of shit to the highest fuck category. It was a perfect sign of Fenwick's fury. And don't tell me I fucked up. Paul, I know I fucked up. He clasped his hands behind his head, leaned back in the chair, and shut his eyes. A few minutes later, the commander joined them. Never thought you'd really do that in front of this kind of gathering, he said. Fenwick sat up in the chair. Kinda served it, he said. That might be so, but he's the boss. I calmed him down a little before I got in here. Turner leaned his back up against the door. He jammed his hands in his pants pockets. The commander perched on the edge of the desk. I agree with you, Buck, Turner said. I've never pushed harder on a case. The commander said, everyone has worked too hard. I can try and placate the guy you insulted, although I'm sure Stuart Odell, the guy in charge of technical services, is probably on the phone to the superintendent even as we speak, declaring your evils to that august personage. Screw it, Fenwick said. It's done. We've got more important shit to do than worry about any of those assholes. He sighed. If the killer walked in right now, I'd kiss him, he said. Someone knocked on the door, and a second later, a uniformed cop stuck his head in the room. Sorry to interrupt, Commander. The superintendent is on the phone. Turner and Fenwick trudged down to the 3rd floor and sat at their regular desk. The squad room was unnaturally quiet. Turner noticed people avoided looking directly at Fenwick. News traveled fast in the small world of Area 10 headquarters. Turner rubbed his hands across his face. He felt the strain in every muscle when he moved. The phone on Turner's desk rang. He cradled it on his shoulder and managed a civil hello. It was Ian. Catch you at bad time? Every time is bad these days. What can I do for you? You sound like you need a break. I can take you to dinner in half an hour. I've got information on Purple Steve. I'll be right down. You've got to eat sometime. I don't care how badly the criminals of Chicago want you. Turner called home. Jeff answered. Ben said he'd take us out to dinner. Are you coming home? He said we'd have to wait for you to decide. I like Ben. Are you coming home? Brian wants permission to go out. Paul talked to both of his sons, giving assurances or permission as appropriate or called for. To Ben, he said, I can cancel the dinner I've got. No, it's okay. The boys and I will shift for ourselves. I'm going to take them out to a little Italian place. I know. We'll be fine. Get home when you can. Paul thanked him and hung up. Fenwick chose to stop at home. They tentatively agreed to meet back at the station later that evening. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.